I don't have any pants on, and I have this fan spinning. Feels good, man. It's like 82 degrees outside. This is how you make a video. Hey guys, how's it going? My name is Darren, and today I'll be giving you guys a guide for Subtlety for PvP. I'm yet to cover Subtlety in Legion after its release. I felt like it was a bit of a finicky spec, and I have some, not say issues with it, but I feel like it could use some buffs. I'm gonna get flamed for saying that. Anyway, I just wanted to make a guide to help anybody new to Legion, anybody new to Subtlety, to get you guys on the right path in order to help you guys start dealing with that damage that you're looking for and start dominating BGs, and maybe even a little bit. This guide will cover everything from class talents, honor talents, helpful tips, basic abilities, how would you burst, how would you use different abilities, all the passives you need to know, and I'll try to structure them in the best way as possible to have as much coherent sense as I can, but still keep it somewhat detailed so as a new player you can learn something new about Subtlety. Anyway, let's get to the video. First things first, when you PvP, if you're not aware, your stats right here of avoidance, versatility, they don't matter. What matters is your item level, and you get a template of stats of crit, haste, versatility, mastery, stam, and even agility depending on your item level. But your item level, some of the abilities I want to take a look at, some of the basic abilities you'll be using. Shadow Strike, you want to be using this as much as possible. 15-yard range, it'll literally teleport you to the enemy, and yes, you can have some fun with that. You can basically be all over the place. So teleport to you, and teleport to you. Be noted that it does have a 15-yard range, so you can go too far, but being able to keep up with a healer or a DPS that's running for me is a lot of fun. It's a 15-yard range, 40 energy, can be used only in stealth or when you have Shadow Dance active, which has 3 charges. We'll talk about it in a little bit, and deals solid damage. It is the majority of where your damage will come from, and can generate up to 2 comp points thanks to the way you talent. Next ability is something you will have to definitely keep up with. No longer do you have Slice and Dice, but you have Symbols of Death. It basically replaces Slice and Dice. 10-second cooldown, costs 35 energy, so you have to make sure that you have energy before you use it, and you basically want to keep this ability up as much as possible. And once you use Symbols of Death, when it's off of cooldown, your next Shadow Strike has a 100% chance to critical strike an enemy. Yes, that's some pretty good damage. Next ability on the list is Nightblade. You'll basically want to keep that as a dot on an enemy. It's a magical dot that deals actually probably the most amount of damage for your combo points. No longer are your Eviscerates the hardest hitting abilities, but your Nightblade is now one of the best hitting abilities in the game. Next ability we have is Backstab. Because of Shadow Strike and the fact that you can use Shadow Strike basically all the time, you almost never use Backstab. Eviscerates, they are actually reduced by 50% in PvP, so your Eviscerates are no longer the biggest damage and ability that you have. They're more it's more supplemental damage. It helps to whatever damage you already do, and it's basically a common point dump, which you'll want to be dumping your common points often with the way Subtlety is played. Next ability we have Cheap Shot, and Subtlety is really strong because of the fact that every time you have Shadow Dance available, which you have 3 charges of, the last 8 seconds each, your Cheap Shot is basically there and ready for you to stun with. The way I would use Cheap Shot, at least for PvP, is I would use it on the kill target. So then when it comes to ability of Kidney Shot, since we're talking about stuns, how would you use Cheap Shot, how would you use Kidney? In most cases, people would use something like this. They would go for a Cheap Shot, generate 5 combo points, deal some damage, whatnot, then use a Kidney. You don't really want to overlap those 2 abilities together anymore. Back in the day, something like Warlords or Mop, you did want to put up Kidney together on the same target as that you're trying to kill. So the way I do it right now, and the best way to go about using Kidney, is to use Kidney for CC and Cheap Shot for the kill target. So we'll have one train dummy on the right with a mark, and we'll have another train dummy right here with another mark. So I'm going to be CCing the skull, but I'm going to be dealing damage to the square. So I'll use something like Shadow Strike, Cheap Shot, and use Kidney on the other target. So separate your stuns as best you can. Next we have Shadow Dance itself. Shadow Dance has 3 charges, 1 minute recharge, and it grants you all stealth effects. So as you look through your talents and your honor talents, any ability that says it grants you stealth effect like Master Subtlety or Soothing Darkness that heals you while you're in stealth, it applies to Shadow Dance as well. So they finally did a really good change by making Shadow Dance act like stealth, so you get all the benefits of stealth. So before, rogues would have to maybe vanish to get the extra damage maybe from Master Subtlety as a passive that it was, but now it just applies every time you have Shadow Dance, which is awesome. You also get Shadow Blades. Where is it? Here we go. You got Shadow Blades from back in Pandaria. So that's exciting. That's what you'll be basically bursting with, even though Subtlety doesn't really have that much burst. The way Subtlety currently is played is it's a spec with a lot of sustained damage. So what you'll be doing is using a combination of stuns from Cheap Shot and Shadow Strike, which is the main damage dealer and comp point builder, to put pressure on the enemy. No longer do you really deal that much insane damage, because take a look. My Eviscerate, it hit for 237, not in PvP combat. In PvP, arenas and BGs, that damage is reduced by 50%. Eviscerates are not really there to burst, now it's more supplement damage. So what you're trying to do is supplement damage add more damage to whatever damage you are already putting out. So you'll be using Shadow Strikes in order to deal damage to the enemy, you'll be putting Nightblade and keeping that on the enemy, you'll be using Cheap Shot to stun lock the enemy, and you'll be using Eviscerates when you're full on common points, when you don't need to refresh Nightblade. You get all that? I'll have that on the screen somewhere. Another passive I want to take a look at is Deepening Shadows. Your finished moves reduce the remaining cooldown of Shadow Dance by 3 seconds per common point. The more often you can have Shadow Dance available, the more often can you have all these buffs like Master Subtlety available, Master of Shadows, that give you buffs for PvP, and the more often can you spam Shadow Strikes. Majority of the damage from Subtlety comes from being able to spam Shadow Strikes. The more Shadow Strikes, the better on the occasion. So the more often you can have an uptime of Shadow Dance by, let's say, refreshing its charges after going through a full rotation, just going through the common points. I literally got a minute charge back on my Shadow Dance, which is insane. So the more often you can spend common points, kind of like a combat rogue back in Warlords or Mob, the better. We'll look at the artifact weapon and talk a bit about that. Gormo's Bite is an interesting ability. It's a 1 minute cooldown. It deals okay shadow damage, which is, take note that it's shadow damage, not physical. And it grants you 3 common points and 30 energy over 6 seconds. The way I use Gormo's Bite, because for Subtlety, generating common points is not really an issue. I use it when I'm out of common points or I need energy. In most cases when I need common points and energy, when I'm basically dry and I run out of juice, Gormo's Bite comes in to refresh me a little bit and allow me to keep on going. So Gormo's Bite isn't the first ability I use in my rotation. I basically use it whenever I need energy, or I need common points, or I need both. It's best when you need both. Now we'll talk a little bit about talents and then go into like rotation, burst opener, normal opener, some of the variations, the playstyle, because all these would, I think I need to talk about the passives before any of the rest is going to make sense. I go Master Subtlety for 15 because 10% damage is more than what everything else can provide. For level 30 I go Subterfuge because it increases the duration of my Shadow Dance, which is, the more Shadow Strikes you deal, the better damage you have, so being able to have longer Shadow Dances is awesome. Vigor, because your finishes don't really deal that much damage except for Nightblade. Your Eviscerates used to at one point in beta hit like for like 1 million, but they really toned it down because Subtlety has so much mobility because of Shadow Strike. Because of Shadow Strike, they had to tone down the damage, so they gave you a lot of good sustained damage and a lot of ways to increase the pressure of that sustained damage, but not really like a big burst for like a 1 million Eviscerate, which would have been cool to use it in this present day, the state of the game. But no longer is it available, so Vigor ends up being the better option. More energy means more Shadow Strikes. Energy regeneration means more Shadow Strikes. The more Shadow Strikes, the better is the way you play Subtlety. Level 60, it's a choice between Cheat Death, Elusiveness, or Soothing Darkness. Doesn't really matter. You can use Cheat Death if you die often and you just don't wanna. Elusiveness is great for reducing damage before you take damage, so great in arenas, and especially in 3s. Soothing Darkness is good for duels, because you can just sit in stealth and heal, which is so annoying for everybody else. And in PvP. BGs, it's alright. I don't think it's that great in arenas, because the heal isn't 3%, it's 1%, but Blizzard doesn't even have a tooltip for PvP, which would be cool if they were to add it. Level 75, it's a choice between Strike from Shadows or Parry in the Weak. It's kind of up to you. With Parry in the Weak, you're able to line up your cheap shots to deal 10% more damage to the target, so if you're able to get some burst damage out or coordinate burst with another player, Parry in the Weak ends up being the best. So 2s, 3s, duels, BGs, anywhere. In certain situations, Strike from Shadows is pretty good. You can use Strike from Shadows in duels, 2s, and BGs. I feel like Parry in the Weak is better for 3s because you get damage increase, but Strike from Shadows basically slows your enemy every time you Shadow Strike them. So to catch up to an enemy that's always running, let's say on a mount, you just Shadow Strike them, and you basically stop them from being able to move because of the daze, which greatly reduces their speed. Then we have Premeditation, which is the best one in a row. Premeditation basically says Cheap Shot and Shadow Strike generate 1 additional common points. That's what I said for Subtlety. Common point generation isn't really an issue. With how much energy you have and how much common points you generate, you should be basically generating common points and spending them really quickly. Master of Shadows. You immediately gain 30 energy when you enter Stealth or Shadow Dance activates, which is awesome. We don't go Mark for because you generate common points a lot. And Death from Above, because Eviscerates don't really deal that much damage, your Death from Above ends up being worthless, or it becomes less of a worth of an ability. Plus, the 50% damage increase that it does for the Eviscerate on the Slam Down is actually 25% because of a nerf. Again, not on tooltips. Really would like if Blizzard were to add that in the game. When it comes to honor talents, first we have the trinkets. If you're a human, you can go adaptation or relentless. I've been playing around RPGs with adaptation. You'll be surprised as how often that 1 minute trinket ends up going off, which is pretty cool. Relentless is another good option. Mainly as a human, you have every man for himself, which used to remove all CC, but now only removes stuns. Stuns is still pretty prevalent in the game, and just about every single class has a stun. So to be able to get out of stuns when you need it on a racial is still pretty cool. So if you're able to go every man for himself as a human, then you can go adaptation or relentless, as you'll find a little bit more utility out of it. If you don't know which one you want or which one you like the most, go with Gladiator's Medallion. Next list is really a choice between reinforced armor or sparring. Sparring if you melee really annoy you, or if you're facing like 2s or 3s with a double melee. And rest of the time you should go reinforced armor for the health increase. The next list we have maneuverability, silhouette, or cut to the chase. I like maneuverability, as subtlety only have a lot of movement speed increase, but having that extra sprint without any roots and slows that can impact you is so nice. So that's what I've been using. Next is we have Shadow's Caress, or really a choice of Smoke Bomb. I wouldn't really look at honor among these because we don't really need more common points. Shadow's Caress, when you're in stealth, the cooldown and recovery of all your abilities increased by 30%. So for example, let's say I vanish, I get in combat with the enemy, but the Shadow's Caress kind of go off. The catchery. As you'll see, this is the cooldown on my vanish. When I get out of stealth, it is back to 40 seconds. But if you go back into stealth, 1 minute. So by sitting in stealth, letting your abilities recover faster, which also works with your Shadow Dance, while you have Shadow Dance available, you have a faster recharge for your abilities, allowing you to get your cooldowns faster. That means CC, damage, and defensives. Otherwise, you go Smoke Bomb for 3s arenas or 2v2s, and it functions just like a Smoke Bomb used to back in the day. For the last 5 seconds, I'm pretty sure the last Smoke Bomb might have lasted like 3 seconds or 4? Maybe less than 5. It has been a while now. Next is we have really Dagger in the Dark or Cold Blood. You want to use Cold Blood in 3 situations for certain because of the direct damage increase that it provides. 40% of the target's total health in shadow damage is a lot, and it's a dedicated, consistent amount of damage that you'll be dealing to an enemy. So being able to line up bursts with Cold Blood is very helpful. Otherwise, you can go Dagger in the Dark so you can deal more damage to the enemy with your Shadow Strikes, which you might be able to sneak in once in a while. So for example, let's say I'm opening on a target, I'm sitting on them, Shadow Strike, I activate my abilities, Shadow Strike, Dagger in the Dark. It's 2 stack, Shadow Strike, Dagger in the Dark, Shadow Strike, maybe Cheap Shot, Eviscerate. Now it's 4 stack, oh no, almost 4 stack. And I'm able to get like about 10, 20, 30, 40% more damage per Shadow Strike that I'm able to use. You can also use this in the same way that you would do with an enemy. Let's say you find an enemy in a BG and you sap them, and you just let those daggers in a dark stack up. So after you stack them up and then you get a sap on the enemy, use a Cheap Shot for 10% more damage increase, then you use a Shadow Strike that's a crit. So look at the damage. Oh, that's a lot of fun for 2s and BGs. But in other cases, if you want more guaranteed burst and guaranteed damage, you definitely want to go Cold Blood. The last 3, Phantom Assassin is just hands down the best option. Increase duration of your Shadow Dance by 3 seconds, more Shadow Strikes, and you automatically gain Symbols of Death when you enter stealth. So you don't spend energy for Symbols of Death where you normally would. It still gives you the ability for Shadow Strike to be a crit. So let me just walk over away from Train Dummy. Activate Shadow Dance. Symbols of Death, 100% crit. Let's go. It's really easy and convenient, and it increases the duration of your Shadow Dance, which is very helpful for PvP. Alright, I want to talk a little bit about some of the notable things from the artifact weapon traits and something you should take a note at. The way I'm going to be building my weapon is I decided to take this whole bottom row, and I'm building it up to Ghost Armor. Then I'm going to cut a sharp right and grab Akari's Soul, and then Shadow Nova. So what I like to do is to grab Finality, Akari's Soul, then I'm going to go for Shadow Nova. Some of the things you should note from here is Precision Strike, 50% damage increase to Shadow Strike, Demon's Kiss, 15% damage increase to Nightblade, Finality, which will increase the effectiveness of your next finisher if it's the same finisher as the one you just used. I'll talk to you guys a little bit about it in a second. Energetic Stabbing allows you more energy every time you use Shadow Strike or Cheap Shot. Well, a chance for more energy. And I don't really have this fully leveled, but you'll be able to get more energy so you can Shadow Strike more often. Like, there's so much energy generation with Subtlety. Alright, Finality. I want to talk a little bit about it. and its effectiveness. So if I, let's say, use finality, so finality, the way it functions is, let's say I have 2 comp points on an, let me actually go for 4 comp points. I have 4 comp points that you can use on an enemy. So if I use Nightblade, the next Nightblade is going to deal 16% more damage. So that's a good thing, and that can work for your eviscerates as well. But one of the things that I don't include in tooltip is the stronger your first finisher, the stronger is your next one. So as you see 60% more damage, I'm going to take it off, get a 5 comp point Nightblade, 20% damage increase. So the question is, should you use your finishers with 4 or 5 comp points? It's up to you. I don't think the 4% damage difference is going to mean that much. Maybe I would say 20% a 4% damage increase for Nightblade I feel like is a lot, but for eviscerates, because you're just chucking so many of them out like through your rotation, you just sit there and just like Shadow Strike, Eviscerate back to back, Shadow Dance, Shadow Strike, Eviscerate. Because of so many eviscerates you're putting out as is, it doesn't really matter to me as much about their effectiveness, like if they're stronger or whatnot. Alright, so your basic opener is pretty same for just about every class. Depends on the class. There's 2 options. You can run up to the enemy, Cheap Shot, Shadow Strike, Nightblade. I like to go into Shadow Dance, Cheap Shot, Shadow Strike, Eviscerate, and then just go to Shadow Strike and then from there on. And that's basically what you do. From there you just maintain Nightblade as best you can and eviscerate your target. Another way to go about it is to get a little bit extra utility out of your stuns, and this is best when the enemy doesn't have friendlies that can just stop your opener. So let's say you find a mage by himself or a warlock by themselves, you Shadow Strike to close in, and then you use a stun to get a full duration on the stun. So you then use Shadow Dance, Shadow Strike, Eviscerate, and then Cheap Shot. So you basically getting a little bit more effectiveness out of the stuns, so you're able to take full advantage of the prey and the weak that comes with it. And it's really up to you. It doesn't really make it that much of a difference which way you open on the target for the most part. As long as you establish Nightblade, and as long as you sink those Shadow Strikes in there and control the target so they can't run away or pop defensives against your opener, then you're just doing fine. Alright, so how do you burst a Subtlety? You basically burst with Shadow Blades. And Shadow Blades will deal shadow damage on your auto attacks, but it will also grant an extra combo point for you. So this is how I burst, and I actually have to have a bit of concentration just to get this right. Alright, so what you saw there was me going Shadow Dance, Shadow Blades, Cheap Shot, I got 4 combo points, Eviscerate, I popped Shadow Dance, and I used Shadow Strike to get a couple of combo points. And I'm pretty sure I used Eviscerate. I should have used a Nightblade. And then it's Cheap Shot, almost 5 combo points, Eviscerate, Cheap Shot, Eviscerate. So with Shadow Blades, you're able to generate a ton of combo points, dealing shadow damage with auto attacks, and you're able to get as many Eviscerates out there as possible. So that's the way that I've been bursting with Shadow Blades. The way the Subtlety is played, you don't really have like burst how you would. You actually just have a lot of sustained damage, and your burst is basically you're increasing the intensity of your sustained damage. So it's not like you're just, you know, doing the setup like you used to back in Warlords, and then bam, DFA to drop you from like full health to like 25%, you know, chunk of your health is gone after all that prep. Now it's more about your Shadow Striking, and you're gradually taking the enemy's health lower and lower. You're maintaining Nightblades so that keeps the enemy's health going lower, and then you're using those Eviscerates to keep the health going lower and lower and lower. So the damage from Subtlety is kind of expected, but because you have CC, you can lock a target down, and because you have mobility, enemies can't really run away from you. You have an effective amount of CC and defensives and everything in order to be able to survive, and it's basically what it is. It's just sustained damage, just increased intensity of the spec. But Subtlety is a fun spec. I think it has a fun playstyle. I like the mobility that it has. I like the sustained damage that it has. It kind of reminds me of Combat Rogues from back in the day. Actually, in a way, this spec is almost like a Combat Rogue from like Pandaria, because as a Combat Rogue, you spammed Sinister Strike, and here you're spamming Shadow Strike. So Sinister Strike SS, Shadow Strike SS. Very similar, basically. Anyway, it's a fun spec, and I think you should definitely try it out if you're a new player. You might enjoy Subtlety a lot, mainly because of its mobility, CC, the amount of damage that it deals, and it's much easier to play than it used to be, let's say, back in Warlords or Pandaria. But there still is a big difference between a bad Subtlety Rogue and a good one. So if you want to be a good one, you just have to practice the spec, play it as much as possible, try new things, and figure out your way to success. And you can use this video in order to help you guys play it better. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know what you think in the comments below of the guide. And if you're an experienced Subtlety Rogue, please take the time out of your day to add some helpful tips not discussed in this video on what you can do in order to improve your damage when it comes to PvP. That means battlegrounds or arenas. Anyway guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you guys in the next one.